What's the first song you taught yourself on piano?
Ooh.
Do you remember?
It was probably something like that I taught myself. Well, I took lessons when I was really...
Yeah, so the first like non-classical-y thing.
Ooh. Wow. It's probably a Beatles song.
Let's hear it.
I was obsessed with the Beatles.
Do you remember any of it?
It's probably like... It's probably Let It Be or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I remember playing that a million times over. I don't know if I could do the whole thing.
No, I just want to hear if you remember if
When I
those...
find my, like just like a little bit of it,
Yeah,
just to
yeah,
have.
yeah.
All right, cool. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, oh, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be.
You got it. Nicely done. Nicely done. All right, you want to play another one of your own?
Yeah. This is a song called Never Let Me Go. I wrote this last album, Tall Tall Shadow, for one of my dearest friends. And since we've been so nostalgic this evening, I think maybe I should do that one. From the moment you say faith can never hold you, yours will be a faithful love. Now in the way that you walk, and in every single face that you believed in long before you see me say that you believe me. Never let me go. If now you won't believe me, will you ever let me go? But it tears at my sleeves every time that I see you. I can hardly carry on. Not without you beside me, you're as careless as me. But time could never find us all. If it could find us now, would you believe me? Would you let me go? If now you won't believe me, will you ever let me go?
Basia Bulat at my house here for you on a Strombo Show Sunday night. Hello, madam. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? It's been a while since I've been called madam. I am not ever yet.
Well, it's the respectful way
Yes, it's true.
to approach. Welcome to the home. Thanks for coming in for the show tonight.
Thanks for having me. This place is incredible.
It's a nice little hidden spot downtown. And it's a space that honors music, so we're really thrilled that you're actually here for it.
I'm very honored to be here.
What are you listening to now? Where's your head at musically now?
Oh, wow. What am I listening to a lot of now? I'm listening actually to a lot of My Morning Jacket. Their last record, Circuital, mostly, but kind of been going through their catalog a little bit.
What is it about it that's working for you?
I love Jim's voice. I really like that they've changed with every record, pretty much, and that they take a lot of risks artistically.
They showed up, they got so much attention, and it didn't seem to faze them even for a second.
No.
And I wondered what that was like, because the aplomb was global. Overnight, it felt like, for that band.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I didn't hear about the band I got into Jim's music through Monsters of Folk, so it was kind of like a cool discovery for me to just go into this whole other world that I just really didn't have access to at the beginning. I didn't know super well, and yeah, I think for me there's this element to his singing that obviously everybody kind of talks about, where it feels really, really free, and at the same time it's very there's these strange moments, and then these very comfortable moments, and then there's these sort of unfamiliar moments, and there's a lot of soul in there.
Do you listen to other singers, not for ideas, but to see what they do with their voice, and does that give you something to think about as it relates to your own?
I think I listen to singers that I think it's kind of this part about music that is, we're always trying to qualify, and it's really hard to explain. Like, there's certain people that you just connect with, and then certain people that it takes a while to get into, or you may never get into. And so when I heard his voice, it really just felt like a discovery, and it was just kind of an instant. I think a lot of people, probably that's why it felt like overnight thing, where when people heard it, they just there's this connection of somebody.
Which song should we play?
Oh, wow. Can we play two?
Yeah.
If I were to pick two, or you can pick one of these two, I would pick, we could play Dance Floors and maybe Out of My System.
Let's play two, My Morning Jacket for Basia on radio too. It's a good old-fashioned double shot on radio right there of My Morning Jacket for Basia Bulat, who's here. You had a radio show.
I did.
Did you program all the songs?
I did indeed.
What were you into? What were you trying to play? What was your goal?
Our goal was to, the show was called Happy Tuesday.
CHRW, right?
It was CHRW. And
college radio, by the way, if you're listening to us.
Yes, and it's what we called in the biz open format. Right. So
that's what this show is, open format.
So we kind of played everything, ranging from Frank Sinatra to Pavement to Bjork,
When you were a player at the time, so you were your own a musician as well,
yeah,
right?
I mean, I had always played music. I grew up playing music. My brother and I both, my brother played drums. I played anything that I could have access to, basically, and mom.
Her brother played in a band called 2 Minutes Too Late, which I loved, and there was a song called Arm the Bears, which was my favorite song that any Toronto band had ever given me when I was I had a punk show. I loved his band.
We're gonna have to talk about your punk show in a moment.
We will,
think,
okay.
Actually, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it's true. We grew up playing all the time. So, yeah. In terms of. But
it wasn't a career.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't something. I always wanted to play music, but I don't know if I had the confidence. I had always been that kid kind of in the corner of the school hallway playing guitar, and people would come up and visit me.
But did you know it? I mean, you must have known, but did you know that your voice was what it was?
I always loved singing, but I think it took me a long time to realize that it was okay to be confident in myself and sing the way I wanted to. And whatever that sounded like, as long as I believed myself what I was singing. It took me a while to get to that point.
Basia Bulat is here. Were there people in your life encouraging you or discouraging you from it?
Well, definitely my friends in campus radio were encouraging, and my mother was the most encouraging. My mother and my brother we were kind of tight-knit family unit. So, and obviously my brother played drums for me, which was a coup. Yeah. And I think in general, I would say I'm very, very lucky to grow up in Canada, where we do have a culture where we support the arts. And I think, I feel extremely, extremely charmed to have had that experience. And yeah, to have access to a radio show where I got to play whatever I wanted and get to know all sorts of great music. And it was really these friends of mine, the music director at the station that insisted that I open for Julie Doiron when she came through London, Ontario. So that was kind of my first gig. I'd played lots of classical Kiwanis Club things, and that was kind of my main experience.
Were you playing the Polish clubs and all that at the time?
Oh yeah, I wish. No, there was one guy who was really a great accordion player that I felt bitter that he was playing all these concerts when he was 10 years old, and everyone was going, "Oh, look at him, he's a musician." And I'm stewing inside, going, "I'm really good too. You guys just don't know."
We'll play Julie as well, but you put on your memory cap and go back to that college show. What song do you remember playing or that really you felt like it was a coup?
Oh, well, the theme song to our show we played every morning right at 9 a.m. is called Poodle Rockin' by Gorky's Zygotic Monkey.
I love that.
It's one of my favorite songs.
Well, let's play it right here on Radio 2. Strombo Show Radio 2. I interviewed that band, Gorky's Zygotic Monkey, years ago.
That's awesome.
When I worked at The Edge, the radio station, and then later in the early days at Much Music. So wild.
They're amazing. Yeah, they were one of my favorite bands because they were so strange, but also they had their real folky moments, especially in the later records. And I had a little, I guess I'm what people would, some I forget who made fun of me. I think it was actually Afi of Bahamas who made fun of me for being such a music fan. And of course I'm a music fan, but I bought tickets to their show in Cardiff on St. David's Day, which is kind of their equivalent of what we would have a Canada Day.
Well, and to see a band in Wales, like that's a big thing.
Yeah.
If they're from there, yeah.
So I bought tickets before I had the flights booked or anything. I didn't know how I was going to get there or do anything, but it was one of the best shows, one of the most fun shows. And Yola Tango was opening, so it felt really like a no-brainer.
Did you bring an instrument on hoping you'd get added to the gig?
No, I nearly got kicked out of the venue for being too excited
Seriously?
at the time. I was like 16 years old or something. Yeah.
Basia Bulat is here on the Strombo Show on Radio 2. All right, let's play another song. Something else that you heard when you were a kid that maybe just didn't have to inspire you, but could have planted a seed in your head.
Oh, I think if we could play It's Oh So Quiet by Bjork, that's definitely... her music and her voice was something that kind of felt like a revelation to me at the time when it was coming out. I was in high school, and it felt like magic.
With a great video, too.
Yeah.
Here's Bjork on Radio 2. Strombo Show continues here on a Sunday night. Basia Bulat is hanging out in the home. Wherever you may be on this Sunday, I hope you are enjoying the day and the sounds. Were you a Breaking Bad fan?
Yes, but the thing about Breaking Bad is that it's very stressful, and I'm the kind of person that when things get too stressful, I have to like leave the room and then come back and get filled in on what happened.
So how did you feel when Better Call Saul, Bob Odenkirk talked about you and just fell for your voice?
I'm actually a huge fan of his because of Mr. Show, and I really love comedy and a lot of sketch comedy. So it was kind of incredible, and I'm a huge fan, and it's been really amazing to have that connection and be able to give him a couple records.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Because there was this moment handful of years back when people started to talk about you, and I didn't put the two of you together with your brother when I first heard that it was you, and I had spoken to your mom a bunch of times when I worked in radio, so I wasn't sure that and then all of a sudden, you also had your My Morning Jacket moment where it exploded, and I wondered what that was like for you, because it wasn't just in Canada.
Yeah. I think the thing that I try not to look backwards too much, but I've done a little bit of reminiscing recently, and I think something that strikes me about that time is I was not very calculated, or I didn't really have a plan. So really, I feel like it was this combination of I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to write songs and tell stories and play on stage and make a memory of that by making a record. And then the sort of that combined with the luck and sort of chance. I don't want to say that it's a fluke or anything like that.
Oh, but there's so much fluke that plays into anybody being found.
Yeah, there's a bit of an element of timing and chance always. So the fact that it got into the hands of some people in England who wanted to put it out, and all of a sudden people in Canada were like, wait a minute, why don't we? You were probably one of the only people that maybe knew who I was at the time.
Yeah, no, I did. Yeah. I did. Your brother told me.
That was because we were knocking on the door asking you to play our music.
You were little, man. You were so little, though. But listen, if you don't have that energy in you as a kid, then I don't believe that you'll have it as an adult.
Yeah, I think I also have to say, and we can edit this or not if you want, but I feel incredibly grateful, not just because in Canada there's this great community and things like that, but also just by the chance of being able to grow up in Toronto and like listen to your shows. And I'm sure you remember my mother calling in constantly.
She
for
won concert tickets all the time.
I
knew you go to Bulat's, your mom. I knew her phone number off by heart. I knew when you were a kid because she would call. But she always told me. She told me about you.
Yeah. So my mom came from Poland, and she really wanted us to do whatever we were excited about, and it wasn't always the easiest thing for her to necessarily to go to all the shows that we were excited about. It would be impossible, she was kind of looking after the two of us and working really, really hard.
And that generation of moms who came over from Europe, I'm sure it's true elsewhere, but I know my mom was one, and their entire lives were put on hold just to make sure that we were okay.
Yeah, and I mean, she studied music in university and was a music teacher as well, so she kind of understood where that.
And she would win all these tickets just to give you and your brother access to shows.
Yeah, he was allowed to go if I went, so we kind of ran the gamut from I wanted to go see Air and Fiona Apple and Radiohead, and then my brother, I would take him to see like the Foo Fighters and Bad Religion. So we kind of got a very well-rounded music education in that regard.
No, but it's important to grow up, and I think, we kind of I'm not even half joking, I'm totally pissed off at most radio stations across the country because I know they're sitting there trying to make money for their shareholders, but they don't really understand that when you have the public airwaves, it's a responsibility to get people who are 14, 13, 16, give them an idea of what the world could be.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. Music is either an escape or it's a validation or it's some version of a light if you do it right.
Yeah.
And we took that really seriously when we programmed those shows.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I mean, yeah, I totally remember getting to the station at midnight so my brother could drop off a CD and all his friends and all of their bands playing. And it is an element of community that's involved that I feel, pretty lucky that I got to grow up in this city.
Would you mind if we played Arm the Bears?
I would love if you played 2 Minutes Too Late.
Here's Arm the Bears. It's Radio 2. There's a band called 2 Minutes Too Late. Arm the Bears is that song. I loved hearing it so much when these kids gave it to me. And I genuinely listened to every record, every CD that a kid gave me when they came by the edge of the radio station because you never knew. That's how I heard Sum 41. That's how I heard Simple Plan. That's how I heard a band called Pilot that I loved. Another punk band in Toronto called Riot 99. That's how I heard these artists,
Yeah, we've got a lot of Riot 99 stickers in our basement.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
I loved hearing it. And when your brother was so nice and friendly that I was like, oh, what is this going to be? And it was just such a well-written song. It was and that's Basia's brother, who is here with us right now.
The more talented Bulat.
No, I think tied.
Thanks.
You were saying that you knew that you wanted to tell stories. Did you have any idea what stories you wanted to tell?
I think, especially with my writing process and the way it's evolved over time, I kind of, for me, it's always like a process of listening and not necessarily judging or closing off. I think when I usually have like a very definite idea of what I want to do, then it's almost a negative sign because then I'm closing off all these other avenues. So just kind of like leaving yourself open and listening to what is going to come in your head. That's a very kind of.
But how do you know when it's authentic? How do you know when you're not just talking about the things that influenced you, but it's really your driving fire?
I think when you start out in any art form, there is an element of study. So definitely, I think, especially when I was younger and when you're learning to write songs or learning to do anything, you're taking your heroes and your influences or your inspirations, and you are taking them in and processing them in a way. So there is always an element, same with painters and writers, I think, for sure, until you kind of until they get fleshed out in some way and you kind of emerge as some sort of butterfly of your own design.
Right. Caterpillar to butterfly.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Like that. Yeah.
So I think definitely I think the stuff I'm working on now is almost like that hasn't come out yet is kind of the least influenced, I guess, by the outside world. But at the same time, it's so hard to know. You know, you can talk about everything the way you want, but everybody's going to hear a song a different way, and how they connect to it and how they find their way in is going to be really unique to them.
Is there? I mean, I know the answer to this question is yes, because it should be for every human being. But I just wonder, can you point to some tangible changes in you? The difference between recording as a girl versus as a woman, young to being an adult.
Well, there's a lot of. That's a big question. That is a whole hour into itself. I think when I was younger, I knew I was very interested in documenting, just on a very aesthetic level, you know, and just getting out of the psychological stuff for a minute. It's more just on an aesthetic level. I was really interested in documenting, and especially at that age when you kind of are writing all your first songs and everything, and it's sort of the same thing. You're taking pictures, and I can see it now online with like Instagram and Tumblr, and people are just documenting everything because that's like such an exciting time. And also aesthetically, I was really in love with a lot of folk music, which were just straight up archival documentary type of recordings, and I love them so much.
Well, most of those field recordings were just set out for that specific purpose. Yeah. You know, both in blues and bluegrass and country, right?
Yeah.
And folk.
And so I think, and then that sort of second wave of folk music of the 60s was obviously very inspired by that, and kind of this idea of being a part of a tradition. And I think that's when I was younger, I was really interested in that. How can I feel like part of this tradition of, you know, that really starts, you know, in France, you know, with like the troubadours and the trouvères and things like that. And I think now I think I'm more interested in creating something and playing with what can happen using the studio as an instrument. And I'm actually very interested in the pop song form and just the way to get to somebody directly. What's the minimal amount? I also studied literature in university, and I've always been really interested in especially certain poets who are able to convey like this whole world in a single line and don't necessarily need, you know, I think I started with like this epic ballad form that I was really in love with, and now I'm kind of really interested in almost what would William Carlos Williams do if he made a pop song, you know, like
would it
3
be a big
lines
hook?
And I think maybe, or I don't know, actually.
It might be more
really simple.
Yeah.
Might be really simple and kind of
well, a lot of good pop music is very simple.
Yeah.
Right? 1.5 chords and a drum beat.
Yeah, I think and it's also just, I don't want to ever repeat myself either. So I think very few of us want to be tied to who we were when we were 20 or 21. Right. Or, I mean, Patti Smith just spoke about singing at the Vatican and how she doesn't think it would be fair to people to tie her to something that she said years and years and years ago, when she's definitely a different person, but you know, her core values are the same. And so I think for me, there's always this element of as long as I believe what I'm doing, if I listen back to it and I believe it and it feels, you know, you kind of can feel, it's going to sound very esoteric or something, but this kind of like electric hum of what feels like true in the moment, then you know that that's what you should be doing.
Does the truth shift though? Of
course. I mean, things that you write, I think that the kind of interesting thing about singing some of my older songs now is I generally, if I can't find a way to feel like what I'm singing is true, I don't necessarily have to like go and inhabit myself from 7 or 8 years ago, but and I feel like I'm still very new at making records. Like I'd love to one day I mean, it would be very interesting to ask Bob Dylan about this, but I think that's the very reason why some of his songs are unrecognizable, and I love that when he plays them live, and then you realize, okay, yeah, this is Simple Twist of Fate, or this is Idiot, and it's like, of course, like the words are true to him, but maybe he doesn't want to just you know, the element of ritual and repetition in performances is extremely powerful, but at the same time you also want to take that stage and make it your own, whatever that might look like in your given moment.
Should we play that song, that Dylan tune?
Simple Twist of Fate would be great.
Let's play that. And we should play Patti Smith as well. Which Patti Smith song?
Oh, well. I mean, I was referring to her interview where she's talking about Gloria, because the first line she says,
Jesus died for somebody's sins, but not mine.
So, you know what? Let's play that song.
Yeah, why not? It's one of the best things ever. Here it is on Radio 2. So walk me through this mindset of the pop thing. in your mind?
Oh, I don't know.
You know, like what you're thinking of. Who's an example of a pop artist that, because you can do it in a couple ways, right? You can do it in a completely inauthentic way, and many have, which I have no, whatever, that's your vibe. But then there are other ways to do it where you can resonate on a different level. Who do you listen to and think, oh, there's something really interesting about what they're doing?
Okay, well, I mean, I don't know if this would qualify as pop or rock. I think that's the other difficulty when I'm using these terms is that what I consider pop is probably not what other people might consider pop. Like I think about David Bowie having a very singular voice and kind of going from, his first record is a kind of very 60s pop. Do you know the sort of the folky record? Yeah. And then we've got, Ziggy Stardust and moving on. And I kind of adore Young Americans. I'm a fan of Young Americans and Let's Dance and those records. So they're some of my favorite songs. Modern Love is one of my favorite songs. So just that, I think of Modern Love as a real pop song, and I think...
but it's interesting, what was pop music in the 80s and what was pop music in the 70s versus what... And I don't mean the Donny Osmond pop, because that was another world.
Right.
But in the 80s, pop music was Dire Straits.
Right.
And had lots of play on MTV. Whereas pop music now, there's a gulf between one and the other.
Yeah. There does seem to be this... I think that kind of the interesting thing about right now is that the kind of instruments that would be used in the 80s for pop songs, like these certain kinds of synthesizers or anything like that.
The 808.
Yeah, and then like what was kind of used to be considered like this mark of authentic songwriting, which was the guitar. And there's actually a way to get your, like, send your story across. This idea of authenticity is also something that's kind of, I mean, looking at David Bowie himself, it's sort of like there's always which one is, that's always the conversation.
Same with Dylan, right?
And the answer is all of them, because we aren't just one thing. So that's a very long, rambling way of saying, I mean, maybe this next thing I'm working on will come out and everyone will just say it's the exact same thing she's always done, and other people will be like, whoa, it's so different, and I'm never going to be able to make it. But
it'll be more Bowie and less Katy Perry.
Oh, yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's no slight on Katy Perry at all, but I'm hoping it can be a little more effed up.
I think it can be. Yeah. You just do whatever you want.
I'm hoping, yeah.
And you do it, we'll play it.
Yeah, all right, good.
Basia Bulat here. You want to play for us?
Sure, that'd be great. This song is called Tall, Tall Shadow.
you can't live in, tear it apart. Your own confession made in the dark. Now every hour, change of heart. You're running away, but the shadow is your own. Your own. One day when it finds you, take it to heart. You can't run away when you know that the total shadow, total shadow, the total shadow, total shadow, the total shadow, total shadow, the total shadow, total, you know the total shadow, total shadow, the total shadow, total shadow is yours. You can't run away if the shadow is yours. You can't run away if the shadow is yours. You can't run away, no, you can't run away if the shadow is yours.
Yeah, that was incredible.
That was good.
That was so great.
Awesome.
Nice. Well, Basia Bulat right here on the Strombo Show on Radio 2.